Oh, you have Audacity? Okay. Ready? Three, two, one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 142 of the Security Podcast on the In30 Network. I'm Haim Cohen, and we have Tom here, and we have a lot of news. Most of it is actually important. Not that it affects you personally, but it does affect a lot of people. So, Tom, I don't know, where do you want to start?
Last week, we really struggled to find any kind of news or topics to talk about. And then, not even an hour after we said, yeah, let's go ahead and push this, then everything broke all at the same time. So let's start out with some good news first. Google, their security researchers have announced the first SHA-1 collision. So congratulations to Google and team. This is a great thing. We know that Microsoft and Google have both, Microsoft leading the charge and then Google following up and like, oh yeah, well, we're going to ban it faster than you, Microsoft. Just trying to get the security one-up game going. Banning SHA-1 in SSL certificates. So it shouldn't be used anymore, but it's not like completely broken like MD5. The SHA-1 collision is really the first step in a full break of this hash function. So we've got a little bit of time to live with it, but not a ton.
Well, just some backstory. I mean, Google very famously said as of June, I want to say 2016, SHA-1 no longer accepted. We're going to give you the red screen of death. I don't know what it was called. And then they relented and they said, we're going to give you only the green screen of the gray screen of death. Like the icon will be gray. And January 1st, 2017, no more SHA-1. That's it. You're getting red screen. That's it. And here we go. Microsoft followed suit, said the same thing, and everyone got all mad. But you know what? Now we have proof of why it's insecure.
Yeah. So this is good. We are leaving SHA-1 in time. It's not like everyone was using this thing and then, oh no, Google has made a collision and we can now assume that it's completely broken and out there. This has been coming for a little bit, and we're off of the burning platform in time for it to sink nicely into the deprecated ocean of technology.
Well, do you want to explain SHA-1 or a hashing algorithm, or you want me to?
I can go ahead and give it a shot. So, okay. A hashing algorithm. More colloquial term and probably a better visual is a digest. So what this does is it takes a big piece of data, right? It takes a big piece of data and it runs it through this mathematical function to make an individualized, unique string that represents that data. It's not compression. It's not like chunking this thing down into this. It's basically saying this file, when run through this mathematical formula, shows up like this. So let's say you're downloading a really big file, like a game or something, and the developer can say, hey, download program, when you're done downloading, run this through this hashing algorithm and make sure the outputs match. If they don't, something got corrupted along the way. A digest is probably the best way to think of it. It takes something big and it scrunches it down into unique output.
So let me ask you, is this what password does when you create a password as a username, like a username, and you're generating a password? The limit shouldn't matter because it takes whatever it is and it scrunches it up into one of these hashing algorithms.
Exactly. So some of the bad, web apps out there will take your password and just shove it in the database. And those databases have got, field length restrictions in most databases. And I've seen web apps that have an 8-character limit because they literally take 8 of those characters and slap them into a field in the database. That's a bad idea. If you run your passwords through a hashing function, the hash is going to be this long and exactly this long. Not any longer, not any shorter. Doesn't matter if you put a teeny tiny password in there. It doesn't matter if you put a giant password in there. It's all going to get chunked down into this one hash of a fixed length.
And if we're going to play inside baseball, you're going to tell me why that we should limit it to 200 characters.
Yes. Yes.
So for those who don't know, Tom limits his passwords to 200. So update your dictionary attacks accordingly.
Yes. Yeah, I do not let unlimited password length on my web apps. And if you would like to know why, you can visit our WhatsApp group, and I would be happy to enlighten you. It's free. We all talk in there. We post security news, and it's a lot of fun. Join our WhatsApp group today. Send us a message on Twitter or an email.
Yes, and we will get to you. But so what they're saying is whatever they were doing in the lab, they found a way to get two different files to have the same hashing endgame, which is a problem if you're trying to mine bitcoins. Like you're going to have the same wallet as somebody else or anything like that, or the same password. But realistically, I don't think it's going to be exploited in the next day, 2 days, 6 months, a year. But basically it's saying it's, you know what? Time to move on.
Yeah, this is the first step in turning this into an actual exploit that you can use for any kind of benefit. Right now, it's kind of a novelty. It's oh, wow, that's cool. It's a good thing we knew this was insecure and started to shift away from it. But, that's pretty neat. I can only imagine the next 5 years or so, we're going to go from SHA-1, the collision being something trivial and kind of neat to being, yeah, SHA-1 is pretty broken, and if you're using it, it's as bad as MD5. And for those of you who aren't in the know with security, MD5 as a hash is totally 100% broken. If you're just using it to make sure that your download didn't corrupt on your big file that you pulled, that's fine. But if you're using it in any sort of security way to authenticate the data hasn't been tampered with, no, you can't do that anymore. MD5 is totally broken for that use case.
Do you remember this transmission, the open source BitTorrent client? The hackers got a hold of their website and uploaded a transmission file that matched the same MD5. This was about, I don't know, a year ago.
Well, so with that, I believe they actually hacked the website as well as the upload. So they uploaded their own file, and then they changed the hashes on the website to match what they uploaded.
So
if your endpoint's compromised, there's not a whole lot you can do.
So, well, this is big news at SHA-1. So now we have to up our game and go to SHA-2. Is it SHA-256 and move on from there? Next thing. I think this broke 3 hours before we recorded last week, but we had no news. Basically, Cloudflare, they host a lot of the web's web traffic, secure traffic, had a Heartbleed type vulnerability, and now they've dubbed it CloudBleed. And this is a lot of stuff that I can't explain, but I know Tom can.
So Cloudflare is huge. It is a CDN. It is denial of service protection. Cloudflare's got a whole bunch of servers, a whole bunch of capacity, giant pipes on the internet. And what you can do if you know your site's going to get a lot of traffic, if you want it to be fast, if you know that people are going to try to DDoS your site and essentially blast it off the face of the internet by flooding your server with traffic, you can put Cloudflare in front of it. And what happens is Cloudflare will pull from your website, obtain a copy of the data, and host it themselves. And anytime someone tries to go to your website, they hit Cloudflare instead. So they quite literally man in the middle of your traffic, which isn't all bad. You actually don't need, you should have, but you don't require to have SSL set up on your end. What you can do is you can put Cloudflare in front of your website and have them do all the SSL work for you. So your web server talks plain text to Cloudflare, and Cloudflare talks in a secure manner to anyone who's accessing your site. It's a pretty cool feature, and it has helped a lot of the web become more secure. That said, this is a pretty big issue, and it has been fixed. It was fixed very, very rapidly. But what basically happened is there's a couple features in Cloudflare that parse HTML, and this parser was written in C. And if you know anything about C, you know it's really fast, it gives you a lot of power, but it's also really dangerous to use because it does give you so much power. It allows you to make really bad mistakes. There was a mistake in this parser, and essentially it posted into the page that customers were receiving private chunks of server memory, stuff that you should never, ever see, right? And it was dishing it out to anyone who asked, including Google Cache, Yahoo Cache, Internet Archive. All of these archival caching services all over the web now have tiny chunks of server memory, which can contain anything from passwords to keys to messages to pictures, images, uploads. Anything you do on a website can be inside of server memory, which a small chunk of that is now on a public page available in anyone's cache.
Yeah, and it ends up, I don't know, it just seems like this is a bigger problem than the original Heartbleed, because Cloudflare does support all these websites. And I do know if you want them to manage your site, you have to give them the private key. So now they have access to your private key, which you generally don't want to do unless you want the mitigation tactics and the CDN capabilities and everything else. But the fact is that the big websites on the internet are leaking data. That's not good.
Yeah, so this was discovered by Google's Project Zero, Tavis Ormandy, who is, a god amongst security researchers. He does a lot of great work. And he was poking around, testing something else completely unrelated. And he's like, that's weird. I didn't expect to get this data back. And he looked into it and he said, oh my God, this is a chunk of server memory. This is uninitialized memory. I am getting raw views into someone else's web server and what it's thinking. This is a huge deal. So he dove in deeper and he found this particular issue. Basically, we did cover CloudBleed before. This works in almost the same way, but it's not an OpenSSL vulnerability. It's in a Cloudflare parser vulnerability. But it has roughly the same effect. It means that, if you hit, it used to, fixed now again, that if you requested a Cloudflare page, occasionally, rarely, and I want to emphasize rarely, it's not every request, it is very, very rarely, you would actually get a piece of server memory with the web page, which could do anything from break the web page to have it, show up on the web page. There's a popular chat service, Discord, who sits behind Cloudflare. Some of the full text of user messages was sent and cached. Now, the private stuff has been blocked out in the screenshots, but Tavis posted a screenshot of, some of these full messages, mainly stuff from dating websites, video hosting sites, anything you can think of that was behind Cloudflare. It's getting leaked all over these caches.
I think In30 is behind Cloudflare.
Are we?
I think so. I don't know how Justin set it up earlier, and I think we have a Cloudflare something or other.
So with the numbers, everyone's asking, well, what do I do? Well, because Cloudflare hosts so much of the internet, it might behoove you to change your passwords on some of your more sensitive sites. I wouldn't totally freak out right now. This bug happened so rarely, and the chances of your data in particular getting caught up in one of these caches is so minuscule that you're probably not affected. But if you don't want to take the chance, go ahead and change your passwords, rotate your two-factor authentication, make any changes to keys, whatever you have to do to protect your private information on these sites, go ahead and do it. There is a GitHub link, which we can post, that we threw around the group, that you can look at, the top sites that are using Cloudflare. And that list is, getting edited every day to add new sites that are found and remove ones where the admins have said, yeah, we weren't affected by this for these reasons.
So if you want to do something even easier, so LastPass, if you're using LastPass, run their security challenge. They have a section there, compromised passwords. And it's the very first section. And what they do is they aggregate news articles about different security vulnerabilities with the associated websites. So they are proactively checking all the Cloudflare sites to see if they're on Cloudflare, and then letting you know through the security challenge that you should change your password.
So yeah, you could do that too, which is a way easier solution.
Well, the idea is you're trusting LastPass to do this for you, and we're going to get to LastPass in a few minutes. But the idea is they're doing it for you. If you want the simple way to do it, the right way to do it is to go to this link and go through all the sites. But again, takes time, takes effort. And if you're using LastPass already, the really, really strong password, you're probably okay. But to change it anyway.
So while this is a huge vulnerability, Cloudflare came out and they said, hey, the chance of this hitting you in particular is really, really small. And they kind of downplayed the severity of the issue. Tavis came back on Twitter and said, this is, one of the biggest issues I've seen this year. This could, keep people at work over the weekend trying to fix this stuff and mitigate passwords. And there was some back and forth and some InfoSec drama. Cloudflare, didn't just say, "Oh, bug's fixed. Sorry, guys." They're actually digging into it. They posted a new blog post today with some statistics and exactly, what was found. They said it doesn't look like any passwords have been found so far in the sample of the cache data they were looking at, but it's a hard thing to guarantee. Everyone will admit it doesn't look like this was being exploited in any particular way by any big hackers or I mean, we can't know that it wasn't exploited, but it doesn't look like anyone was caught up in this before the bug was discovered. So it's fixed now. InfoSec drama, etc. It's another week.
So I want to talk about IoT teddy bears. I want to skip the third item for now, and I want to talk about IoT teddy bears.
Oh, this stuff. This is great.
So they found through Shodan the Russians. Like, are we allowed to say the Russians?
Any hack, I'm just going to blame the Russians. It doesn't matter what it is. Like the IP address, like the hack could come from inside my house. I would blame the Russians.
I mean, okay, so we're going to say the Russians. We don't really know, but I think Shodan is a Russian type site anyway. They found out that
I'm pretty sure it's American, but
I have no idea. Like you said, I think we're just going to go with that. Basically, these a brand of toys called Cloud Pets. They're basically stuffed animals where it has an associated Android iPhone app that you can record a message and it plays back to the parents on their phone. So my son can speak a message to me while I'm at school, and I get the message and I say, "Oh, that's so cute." Everything else. Well, we found out their database wasn't secure or encrypted or just about anything. So bad things are happening. Germany has now banned them, and everyone, if you have one, just throw it out. The bigger issue is that these are kids and they had to create an account, and I'm sure there's FERPA issues and all these they're 5-letter acronym issues with kids and their accounts and their information, and now it's all gone.
Yeah, so the guy that disclosed this, and there were a couple of people trying to contact Cloud Pets. If you want the full write-up, go to troyhunt.com. I believe he's a guy behind Have I Been Pwned, which is a fantastic website. You go to Have I Been Pwned, you put in your email address that says, yeah, these companies leaked all your stuff. Sorry. But that way you know whether or not if you've been pwned. And yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say everyone has had data leaked at some point or another. It doesn't matter who you are. But Cloud Pets. So I ranted on this in our WhatsApp group that you should totally join earlier in the week. But Cloud Pets was using MongoDB, which is a very, very popular database engine, especially amongst startups and programmers just getting stuff rolling as fast as they can. MongoDB, by default, it used to be, they have fixed this since, it used to be completely wide open. Any IP address can access the database. You don't need a username. You don't need a password. You can just connect and go. And they always said, hey, when you put this in production, you should probably secure it. But by default, we're going to operate in developer mode. Unfortunately, programmers are lazy. I know, I am one. And we don't like reading documentation, and we certainly don't like changing defaults. So what happened is Cloud Pets, the company, decided to launch this service and throw it on MongoDB, and they didn't change anything. and the database didn't even have a username or a password. You could just log into it, grab all the data. And it looks like the data had been, to be backed up by a random third party. All the data was then deleted and replaced with a ransom note, someone asking for Bitcoins. So they had been hacked 6 ways to Sunday. No one was notified. This is negligence to the highest degree.
Well, and the problem is that it's not just your data, it's kids' data. And for me, that's what I've been trying to preach, at least at school, that the kids should at least watch their data. However, like you said, it's negligence. I'm just wondering, is this a Friday night at 5:01 thing? They called the help desk saying, hey, we have a problem, call us back, and no one really gets to them till Tuesday because it came into the main switchboard, and it just sounded like a veiled threat.
No. So Troy actually goes into this on his post. 4 separate attempts were made to contact CloudPets. In one circumstance, their email or their contact page just didn't exist. That link just went nowhere. Another one, they got like a bounce back from an email. They got in touch with the hosting company. They tried to get in touch via Twitter. They actually had a help desk ticket made for this particular issue. Basically, everyone in the world tried to contact these people, and it just took forever to warn them of the risk before anything bad had happened, right? Someone has probably already grabbed the database at this point, but before it was ransomed, before anything was deleted or hacked, before this was, super public common knowledge, everyone that found this tried to warn CloudPets, and they said, hey, you're exposing kids' data out here. You should really, really fix this, and they did absolutely nothing.
And that's the problem. Kids' data is way worse than regular data. I just want to point that out.
But we did have a comment in our group, is this valuable? What makes this so much worse than, say, credit card numbers? Why would someone want this? And your guess is as good as mine. There is a small amount that could lead to, future identity theft. When the kids get credit scores and you can actually use their profiles for something, but it's not typically valuable data. It's not the normal stuff you see. That said, it's kids' data, which does elevate the creep factor for me and really, make me consider whether or not these people should have ever been in business to begin with.
So, again, if it's IoT, be very, very careful with it. And at this point, I think it's time to say, please don't buy anything that connects to the internet for your kids unless you actively know what's going on. Because it's a pretty website. You go to the CloudPet site, it looks pretty. There's nothing bad about it. But again, pretty doesn't deal with security. In fact, the uglier it is, probably the better. If you have nothing else on this, I want to talk about we have a comment. Do you have anything else on this?
No, that's it.
All right. So we got a comment on YouTube, and I don't know how late we are on it, but I wanted to address it. Comment is, we were talking about Veracrypt. For one thing, who exactly performed this recent audit of Veracrypt? Could the group responsible for the audit be in any way influenced by outside sources? Continuing, what were these critical flaws? Do they apply to TrueCrypt? And if so, why were they not found in the original TrueCrypt audit? If not, then I have concerns about the competence of the current Veracrypt developers. What exactly is meant regarding the switch from one form of AES to the other, or did I misunderstand? I'm going to post this for you so Tom can go through each part of it. So we got this comment, and I meant to ask Tom this a while ago. How do we trust audits? When we see an audit by Matthew Green or wherever, how do we know that Matthew Green at Johns Hopkins is the real deal versus Matthew Green who works at Johns Hopkins College in Iowa? How do we know?
It's hard. It's a very difficult problem. So, how do we know that the auditors are legit if they're being paid off by the NSA to say, hey, this is totally safe. Don't worry about it. Totally use it, everyone. We promise it's good, while they're, holding a bag of NSA money. And the answer to that question is you don't know if they're being influenced by outside sources, right? The best defense against that is to have lots of unrelated parties do an audit and come to the same conclusions. That's kind of defense in depth-ish. It's kind of hedging your bets. It's a little bit of everything, but having a whole bunch of audits all sort of saying the same stuff is a good indicator that the audits are being honest. That said, Veracrypt and TrueCrypt, I believe, have only had one audit apiece. And I could be wrong on that. If I am, leave us another comment, and I'll respond to it there. But I totally could be wrong on that. Who performed the recent audit of Veracrypt? OSTIF. These people are building security tools. They're running bug bounties. They're giving grants to people. It looks like they're a nice, what appears to be a nonprofit that goes around and hosts bug bounties, fixes stuff. They generally look like good people. I don't see any names I notice on their staff list, but that's not to say that they're not trustworthy. And when these audits become public, you get a whole lot of the InfoSec community jumping on it, reading it, digesting it, and then letting people know yes or yay or nay, whether or not they agree with it. But it's mostly going to be armchair unless these people are also developers or they can at the very least read code and spot crypto issues. If Matthew Green weighs in on something, typically you can be rest assured that he knows what he's talking about. He's a cryptographer, and a very prolific cryptographer at that. If Bruce Schneier says something, you can probably take him on his word. He wrote the book on cryptography. Literally, he wrote the book Applied Cryptography,
which is on my still on my reading list. But
yeah,
I mean, you see all these things. We're auditing it, and yes, we don't know. But I mean, if something has at least had an audit, I feel like it's generally safer right off the bat, just because. Then somebody went through it, looked at the code and everything else. I could be completely wrong though.
So let me look at this Veracrypt audit and try to get here we go. List of critical vulnerabilities. So OSTIF found 8 critical vulnerabilities, 3 medium, and 15 low or informational vulnerabilities. There are fixes, removal of one of the encryption options that was unsafe, GOST, removal of XZIP and XUnzip. They're replaced with modern zip libraries. Password length can be determined in a classic bootloader. That's fixed. Keystrokes are not erased after authentication. That could be an issue. Sensitive data not correctly erased for the bootloader. Memory corruption in the bootloader. Null pointer, dead code, and consistent data reads in EFI stuff. That'll be fixed. It's nothing that would, if you're a standard user of Veracrypt, it's nothing that would absolutely wreck your data as it sits in a Veracrypt container today. It's really stuff in use, like I'm unlocking a volume, or I'm unlocking a bootloader, and then the FBI grabs my sticks of RAM, puts them in an ice bucket, and then reads the contents of my RAM, and oh no, the keystrokes weren't erased. Stuff like that. It's very much a running exploit, not necessarily data at rest vulnerability. So I still recommend Veracrypt without any kind of hesitation.
Yes, as the commenter posted, yes, Veracrypt is a fork of TrueCrypt. And why wasn't it found the TrueCrypt audit? Well, TrueCrypt had weird licensing, and we spoke about this, that you couldn't just take it. And TrueCrypt, the people we think did it on purpose. So Veracrypt tried to take whatever they had and either make it better or whatever it was. These bugs didn't seem to be in the TrueCrypt audit, which, by the way, did have some bugs that were quickly fixed. And I wouldn't necessarily go at the developer saying they're incompetent or whatever it is. Writing secure code that's been audited, that's only found a few bugs that are not major, is very, very difficult. So they're clearly doing the right job. It's just, okay, we had an audit, we had somebody else look at it, and this is what we found. They quickly fixed it, and they moved on. And people say, well, I should stay on TrueCrypt because I know it. At this point, TrueCrypt's like 3 years old since the last version. You may really want to think about moving to VeraCrypt if you can, or starting new with VeraCrypt, because they are actively keeping it safe.
And a lot of the stuff that was found in TrueCrypt was in the Windows driver implementation. Now, the stuff I was looking at in VeraCrypt, from what I've glanced over and from what I remember back then, I don't think there were too many new or too many old vulnerabilities found there. But the stuff that was found in the TrueCrypt audit, if you remember at that time, TrueCrypt totally went dark. It pulled it. The developers pulled it from the net. They said, "Hey, use BitLocker." It looked pretty shady. It looks like they just wanted to get out of the business of security software altogether. But VeraCrypt did import those fixes. Now, what VeraCrypt did, beyond that, was they took the bootloader and they started modernizing it, because a lot of TrueCrypt is pretty old. It's pretty crufty. I mean, it's been around since the Windows XP days, right? And to modernize that, especially with EFI bootloaders and to get it to work on modern Windows 10 systems, takes a whole lot of work. And that's really where the majority of the vulnerabilities came from, is new stuff that they put in, not necessarily old stuff that was brought over from TrueCrypt. So I hope that answers the question. If it doesn't, feel free to reach out to us again. And if you want to hit us up on WhatsApp or Twitter, I'm always available. Sure. You can even do it privately. I've got open DMs.
Join our WhatsApp group and you can get a much longer answer with lots of people chiming in. Again, our third plug. We really want you to join it. And I just want to say, we did put an invite link on one of our episodes that we had to take down because unfortunately there's WhatsApp spam.
So much spam.
Like, we put it once and we took it down a day later, and we're still getting people joining us, asking us to buy Bitcoins. So you can open DM Tom. You can't open DM me, but you can mention me and I'll instantaneously put you in. It's not a big deal. We just want to verify that you're not a spammer.
And the last question that you have here, what exactly is meant regarding the switch from one form of AES to another, or did I misunderstand? No, you didn't misunderstand. AES actually has several different modes it can operate in. So you can actually look at, there's a great Wikipedia article called Block Cipher Mode of Operation. It's a little heady. I mean, this is encryption we're talking about, but AES has got several different forms aside from bitrate that you can use, such as electronic codebook, cipher block chaining, cipher feedback, output feedback, and counter mode. And these have all got, benefits and detriments like speed or, plain text, not necessarily decryption, but plain text inference. There's a great image out there that shows what happens when you're using a block cipher in cipher block chaining mode versus something like counter mode or electronic codebook mode. And it's an image that they've encrypted. You can easily see the outline of what that thing is supposed to be, of Tux the Penguin, versus cipher block chaining, where it looks like random noise. So there are, just saying AES doesn't get you out of the woods. It's not perfect. You have to specify, okay, AES with this bit rate in this mode of operation. And some modes are better at certain things than others. I would use a different form of AES for network encryption than I would for full disk encryption, for instance. But if you're in doubt, cipher block chaining tends to be the one that people migrate towards the most. So I hope that answers the question.
And we're going to leave our password manager vulnerabilities till next week because we are already over. So we will lead off with that next week.
Oh, I will say, just so you guys don't all freak out, as of today, which is 2017, March the 1st, all reported vulnerabilities by TeamSeek have been fixed. So we'll talk about it, but you don't have to worry about it.
So, okay, we will see everyone next week because we do want to end. We are way over, and next week it is. We'll see everyone then. Bye.
See everyone.